My name is Arturo Serrano, and this is the final assignment for graphic and rendering programming. So I'll be following the grading rubric. So I'll have the pre-made models. So I'll have the pyramid, the cube, the spheres, and all of them work with a single texture and with texture and lighting. So I have them right here. So I have the unit box, the box with repeated texture, a pyramid with repeated texture, a single pyramid, the sphere with texture and lighting, and the box with 6 faces textures, and all of them handles either texture or lighting at the same time. So there's that. Then for the next on the agenda is external models with multiple meshes. So for that one, I've set up all the graphic objects to work with the meshes, which is the mesh operator. So I have it working. So if I want to add different meshes for the skybox, so I'll just need to add a new parameter, and it's going to pop out the mesh number. So I just can type whatever the mesh number is. So, but since the skybox is only one mesh, so we don't need the mesh number right now. So there's that. And for the HSL shaders, they control the texture on the lighting. So I have the shaders right here, and the user can send all the data. So for the all the shaders handles multiple point lights and spotlights. So as of right now, I have an array of 10 elements each. So there's the limit right now, but I mean you can increase it whatever the number you want. And I also have the constant buffer for the fog data, so the user can send the fog data whenever he wants, and he can change that. And this is the color and light, and the color on this is the color and light and texture, and the color and light it's very similar, so both can both can handle the fog and the multiple light sources. And just at the end, I'm just reading the texture and I'm just and the fog data, and then I just return the lit color, and they'll work. So there's that for that one. Then for the skybox class, it's working too. So I have it working with lighting and texture. So there's that. Here's the code, and it's passing a texture pointer. So my bad. The texture pointer it's managed by the graphic object, not the skybox. So whenever like here, when I create the graphic object for the skybox, I'll link the skybox with the texture, and which I send as a pointer. So all the parameters for the texture are managed in the graphic objects as well as the shaders. So, but I mean it's managed with a pointer to a texture. Then for the terrain class, it's it's pretty similar. It's managed by the terrain, by the graphic object. So I'll be having the graphic object for the terrain, and then I'll just send the texture to the graphic object to be a reference into the terrain. And all the models, the terrain model and the skybox, they all manage their own rendering. So there's that. And the graphic objects classes, model shader point, they'll meet the requirements. So I'll just open the texture and light. So it has an array of textures in case you want different meshes. The shader, its world matrix, and it's ambient, diffuse, and specular, which are going to be used for the material of the graphic object. And all of the other graphic objects are similar. I mean, the single texture doesn't need the material variable, so there's that. But the color needs them. But since I'm passing the color light as a single color, I'll be taking all the ambient, diffusion, and specular just as a single color, and it's right here. Right here. It says whatever the color is into the mesh, into the model mesh accordingly, and then I'm just setting the material as the same color for the ambient and diffuse. And all the graphic objects work correctly. Then for the mirror, I don't have a mirror setup. I mean a mirror class setup in my project, but I did. Well, I didn't have the class setup, but I did have a mirror working in the last homework, so there is that. And I'll just run it. Okay, I already have it run it, but before that, I think I'm going to go to the dxapp.cpp just to show how clean is I mean how good is the API. So for each graphic object, depending if it's a texture and lighting or just a color. So I'll be having just like for the skybox, I'll be calling a new texture to hold a pointer to a texture, the skybox model, and then I'll just have the graphic object to link the shader with the model of the skybox, and I also have I'll link the texture with the graphic object for the skybox, and that's all the things that I need for an skybox, and that's pretty much all I need for every graphic object in the scene. So for the terrain, it's going to be the same, just like for elements that need a world matrix. So I'll have their handle differently, such as the like the chest. I have a treasure chest right here, so I'll be having the model loaded from an ASO file, then the texture, then on my graphic object for the chest, I'll be loading the shader and the model. Then I'll just link the texture, and I'll just update the world chase matrix, and I just set the world matrix. That's for each new object that needs a world matrix. And I also had I implemented a new light class, which I think it's pretty handy when we have several shaders running and they all need the same light. I mean the same light parameters. So I'll be having uh, the class. It's right here. I just found it. It's called light parameters, and since all the shaders they all need the same light parameters in the scene, so I decided to have a new class and then just a pointer reference into each shader, so they can reference it. And for that one, I have for the light parameters class. I'll have material structure, funk ADS, directional light, direction point light, and spotlight. And I have a data light parameters, which is just a package for if I want multiple light sources. I just can pack them all and then just share it. I mean, parse it into all the other shaders. So there's that. The fog, this one, it just need to clean it up. This one doesn't really do anything. And just I just reference that class into the shader class, and I have right here. I have a new four classes, which is set directional light parameters, which I'm passing the light parameters, and it's going to be the same for the point light, the spotlight, and I have a set light function which sets all the other three. So how this new class works, it's pretty simple. So I'll just have to declare just once all the lights. So I have it right here, a pointer to a light class. So I'll be setting a point light, then I'll be setting the directional light, then I'll be setting up three different spotlights. So the first one's going to have a hue of color red, and the second one's going to be green, and the last one is going to be blue. And all I need to do is just call the shader, set lights, and pass in the light pointer. And that's how I'm setting up all the lights into the shaders without calling them into either the draw scene like we used to do it before. And the other thing that it also has, which is pretty handy, I mean, each shader class have a spotlight position and point light position, which helps to rotate all the lights if we want. So the previous iterations for the shader classes we have, they will send all the data, and that was really it was it was very slow for the meshes. So I have, I mean, I'll just set up two two new functions that send the position. So this is way better, and it's in the performance increase. So I don't have when I didn't have those. I had 7 frame FPS, so it was pretty bad. So just on the draw scene, I'll be calling like all the spotlight positions since I'll be having three different spotlights. The red, the green, and the blue are going to be rotating, and this is all I need to do. I just need to call the shader, set light position. I'm just going to send the position of the spotlight, the normal, I mean the direction of that particular spotlight, and just the number. So the first one was red, so I just have the 0. Then for the second spotlight, it was 1, and for the last one, it's going to be 2. And that's all I need to do to have a rotating spotlight, and it's going to be the same for point lights. So that's that's what the new light parameter class does. And I'll just have the vector eye position and send the light parameters, and that's all I'm doing in the draw scene. I'm not declaring any other light, so that's all I really have to do in the draw scene with the light class, I mean the light parameter class. And I have it run it right here, so as we can see in the center of the scene, I have the three diamonds, which are the spotlights, which are rotating with a different hue. So I have a skybox on the back, so we can see that all the lighting is rotating correctly around the skybox, and also they reflect on the fishes textures. I have 22 fishes in the scene. So every time they get close to the spotlight, they change the hue, like it was red, blue, and green. So they all interact with the spotlights correctly, as well as the sky. I just reached the limit for the video and it got shut down, so I'm recording a new one. So I have the theme of my scene. It's the ocean, and I have also the terrain working on the bottom. I have a treasure chest, some rocks, and I have a directional light, and I have a point light, which is pretty strong, and it's at the top of the skybox. And for the model requirements, I have them right here. Let me just okay. Here they are. I have the sphere, the cube or crate, and the pyramid with textures, and they all work correctly. And there's the bumpy texture for the terrain. Looks quite good, I would say. I made the texture in Photoshop. I have the rocks which are illuminated correctly. And for all the tropical fishes, I made an array of graphic objects, an array of textures, an array of models, and an array of matrices. So everything is automated. So I have a function called tropical fish, which handles all the rendering for the fishes. And I have it right here. The tropical fish, I'll load all the texture into the arrays, load up all the models into the model array, all the matrices into the matrix array, and I'll just have a for loop just to set up all the fishes. And I'm reusing twice each model, so that's there's that. I can use the graphic objects in such a way so to be efficient. So there's that. And I think that's it for my final project. It was a wonderful class, and I think we'll be meeting on Game Engine. I almost forgot to show how the fog works in the scene, so I'll load the fog data into the shader, into both the shaders, the texture light and the color light. And my fog data, it's going to start at 40, which is pretty near the skybox, and also the range it's going to be 80, and it's going to have a color of dark gray. So I'll just hit run, and here's how the scene looks with fog. So as you can see, it's going to start to fade out near the skybox, and if we move back, everything on the scene is going to start to fade out. The rocks on the back, some of the fishes, and it's strange that the diamonds are not working. Uh, Probably I forgot to import something from the past homework because I have it both shaders are working with the fog data correctly. So probably I forgot to import something for the color and light. So I'll just need to check it twice. But that's it. That's my scene. Just need to check that.